Now that we've seen the effect of each of these different malware programs, let's see how would we try to describe a picture like this in such a way that a client could understand. Keeping in mind that there's no client who wants to look at this. They're not going to understand it. So my first goal is going to be to try to turn this into prediction equations for each of the categories, which is something we started to do with the last video. If you remember, these equations right here were the first way we used to predict them, but they still look kind of ugly. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is to simplify these equations so that a client would actually like looking at them. And that includes making these variables named something that actually makes sense, like budget instead of b hat. We used b hat to remind ourselves that we were using different numbers to make the predictions than we were when we had the actual data set. But it's also important to remember what the client asked for. If the client wants the prediction equations, then you have to go through this and you have to simplify these. But some clients don't want prediction equations. They just want you to tell them what the different effects are. And if that's the case, how much you simplify these equations actually becomes a style choice. Are you the type of person who likes to simplify the prediction equation because it feels complete to you? And if you look at these and think, this just looks nasty and unhelpful, then maybe your style choice is going to be, let's not simplify the prediction equations, especially when we're talking about polynomials that are hard to see. Now you'll also notice that you are allowed to put in scientific notation, like I did right here, if that's your style. We're going to assume the client is smart enough to know how to do this. Now you should notice that in the final project, it is going to be a big nasty equation, and they do ask you for some prediction equation. But you're welcome to not simplify it, like right here. See these numbers? I'm going to simplify them into one number. And if you're just having enough trouble making this equation, then you don't necessarily need to stress about it. You can leave it unsimplified and with the scientific notation if that's helpful. And if you're wondering, no, I'm not going to go through and try to carefully check your math, because this class is about how can you run the statistical analysis and interpret it, not necessarily whether you can count the right number of zeros. And if this was a project where you're getting paid a couple $1,000s, you would also be getting paid that extra time that it would take to try to get all these numbers right and double check them. But if you have a report with just these prediction equations, it's really not enough. For most clients, this still doesn't help them understand the effect of budget and attacks. But this picture right here is going to be its weight in gold. I'm going to try to leave it where you can see it in the video for obvious reasons. You can't say as budget increases, attacks increase. And this really emphasizes why that's only true here for Dewormer and Guard IT, and it's only true here and here for Trust Me. This is a way oversimplified sentence. It just doesn't work. And when I try to describe the effects of these companies, I'm not going to use these numbers at all, because being connected to budget cubed just makes it more complex than what a client's going to be able to understand. So I've got 3 sentences to try to explain this, one for each of the companies. Let's try a different style for each one. So for Dewormer, I'm just going to mention it's high here and here, it's low there and there. And then the people looking at this can make the decision, okay, what range do we want our budget to be in? Of course, this is oversimplified, right? It might be that there's other perks you get if you spend more on budget. It could be, it might not just be an issue of how many attacks there are. So it's possible a $10,000 budget is actually desirable for some reason. Now for the Guard IT, I'm going to choose to describe it based off the Dewormer because they're similar. And I'm going to mention they're similar, and that even though I can prove statistically they are different, how can I prove that? Because if I go back to, if I could find where those p-values went. See, these p-values were small, which proves that they really are different. But that means statistical proof. That doesn't mean practical proof. There's not a whole lot of difference there. It's a little higher on the high and low ends. In the middle, it's actually a little bit lower. Just not a lot. Then for Trust Me, just to show a different style, which you could argue is a more clear and precise style, I'm actually going to say at this value, here's how much it goes up, here's how much it goes down. And since the client can see the picture, this is going to be a very easy bit of wording to follow. I know it looks like lots of words, but following the picture, I think it's pretty understandable. One thing to notice that I cannot say that these trends will continue. I don't know that Dewormer and GuardIT will continue to drop and that Trust Me will continue to climb after the picture is over. It's true that the cubic function will do that, but the cubic function was only used in the range where we had the data. We don't know that that cubic function continues to be valid outside that range. We didn't have any residual plot out in this range. So watch for that because it's very common. Now, if I just had this, I guess might pass, but something like this really needs some final commentary, especially since the client's question was, which of these companies should we choose? So I'm going to say, if your budget's low, choose this one. If your budget's high, choose that one. And I'm even going to go a step further and say, since I don't know why you would increase the budget, I'm going to pick Dewormer. I'm actually going to come up with a final decision. And a lot of times the client just loves for you to make that decision for them. Tell me what I should finally decide. And then I'm going to go a step further and try to make a guess as to why this curvature happens. I'm going to say, if you have a small budget and you bought Trust Me, then you get one type of hacker. But if you have a large budget and you have these companies, you get a different kind of hacker. Like maybe this is high because experienced hackers take notice of you. And this is high because cheap hackers know they can get it. Trust me. You know what I mean? It doesn't even matter if you're right or wrong. I just want to see that you're thinking about the curvature and trying to come up with ideas. And of course, future research would say you should look into whether these ideas are true and whether this really explains why we see the curvature that we see. Now, I'll admit, when you do the final project, there's a certain amount of randomness as to the effect and the effect size, and is it going up or down? Well, the computer will randomly pick a data set for you, and so it might be that you'll get some ridiculous stuff, like if you give more soldiers guns, there's fewer people killed. Well, try to come up with a reason, show me that you can think about it, and that shows me that you really understand the data set. Sometimes when I'm grading the final project for people, they'll be trying to do sentences like these, but they're kind of wordy or messed up and I'm not sure. And if there's no extra thought into why could it be doing this, I wonder if the student really understood or if they're just trying to play parrots with what they have seen me do in the videos. So go ahead and throw a sentence in there that says, here's what the effect is doing and here's maybe a guess as to why that happens. That was fun for this video. Let's try a new data set in the next video.